How's it going, Seminoles? Welcome, Seminoles family and friends. Welcome to our Canes friends too. We know you'll be lurking. We'll see you in the comments, and that's okay. We do the same thing to y'all if the roles were reversed, and we did for a long time throughout the Randy Shannon years and the Al Golden years, even a little bit of the Mark Rick years, Manny Diaz. We've had our fun, and hey, congratulations. We heard it for 20 years every year. Hey, the U is back. And hey, congratulations. Y'all having a great season. Y'all looking amazing. Now, I'm joking, but I'm being serious. Y'all got a quite a hell of a team. Um, but yeah, we be ribbing y'all a little bit too. So if we can dish it out, we can take it. Bring it on. Um, but It is Monday, October the 13th. It's a couple days after yet another loss at home, yet another loss to an ACC opponent. So, a lot of the fan base is not happy with Mike Norvell. Um, Everybody likes Mike. He's a likable guy. Uh, but when it comes to performance and production on the field, uh, a lot of people are pretty put out with Coach Norvell. So I'm going to take a look at some facts. And we're going to go over some facts and then we'll decide. You may already have an opinion what you think the school should do from here on out. Um, but I've got some facts here that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. There's a couple things on here, only like two things I've really heard anybody else mention. But let's take a look over Coach Norvell's record since he's been at FSU. Um, his tenure is a little bit different. He got extended a little bit. It looked like he made some growth in certain areas, but when he took over, it was a little bit different than Coach Taggart. When Coach Taggart took over for Jimbo Fisher's departure, um, yeah, he and Coach Taggart inherited a little bit of a mess, but it was really like Jimbo Fisher had a decline over a few years, but it was really his last year, 2017. It was obvious it was a mess, and he wasn't even trying. Uh, had a couple years of Coach Taggart, and I think that's why Mike got cut a little bit of slack because he wasn't picking up after 1 year of a coach that didn't put any effort into. Now he was picking up after 3 years of being pretty terrible. And we also cut him slack on his first year. Had that COVID year. He didn't have any spring. Um, Things were really stacked against him. You may already have an opinion on what you think the university needs to do from here on out, but let's evaluate some stuff and then make a determination. And I'll let you know how I feel, and I'd like to hear how all of you feel. Um, as of right now, Mike Norvell, as FSU's head coach, has had 3 losing seasons to his 2 winning seasons. He may be able to muster a winning season out of this year. Jury's still out on that. I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way. So, at best, if he pulled off a winning season this year, he'd be sitting at 3-3 as for winning seasons versus losing seasons. Uh, as head coach at FSU, he has an overall record of 36-30. His first season was 3-6. That was the COVID year. Second year, 5-7. Third year, 10-3. Fourth year, 13-1. Fifth year, 2-10. And as of right now, we sit at 3-3. As for ACC play, during Coach Norvell's tenure, his FSU squads have a losing record of 20-23 in ACC play. In 5.5 seasons, Norvell has lost to every team in the ACC at least once, except for Cal, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Stanford, who he hasn't coached against yet. That's coming up this week. Coach Norvell holds losing records to 7 ACC schools, 8 if you want to include Notre Dame. The 6 ACC teams that Norvell holds a winning record against are UNC, Duke, Syracuse, Boston College, Virginia Tech, and Cal. It's currently been 387 days since FSU beat an ACC opponent. They've beaten one ACC opponent in the last 680 days. Coach Norvell's at-home record. Coach Norvell and FSU's home record is 22-15. So he's lost 15 out of 37 home games. That's 40.5%. So he loses 41% of all home games. Norvell's FSU teams have had 2 bowl appearances under Norvell's previous 5 seasons. Out of the 2 bowl appearances, he is 1-1, defeating Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl and getting annihilated by Georgia in the Orange Bowl. So Coach Norvell's other accomplishments is he was responsible for FSU's worst season in 50 years. He holds the record for the worst loss in bowl history. Not worst loss, not worst bowl loss for FSU. No, in all of college football. FSU's first loss to an FCS school came under Mike Norvell, losing at home to Jacksonville State. At home. I emphasize that because, as I mentioned previously, 15 out of 37 home games, losing at Doak is nothing anymore. You know, it's not out of the ordinary. It's just exceedingly common. Mike Norvell was the first FSU coach to ever lose to Duke after 23 meetings. Coach Norvell was the first head coach in history at an FBS level to have a 5-star recruit flip to an FCS school. Mike Norvell's teams have suffered 14 blowout losses, and I know everybody's definition's a little bit different there. For me, I consider a blowout loss being more than 2 touchdowns. So anything above 14 points. You had 5 of those in 2020. Lost to Miami 52-10. Lost to Notre Dame 42-26. Lost to Louisville 48-16. Lost to Pittsburgh 41-17. And lost to NC State 38-22. The next couple of years, you had 2021 Wake Forest 35-14. And of course the Orange Bowl, losing to Georgia. Oh God, 63-3. 2024, you had 7 blowouts. You lost to Boston College 28-13, SMU 42-16, Clemson 29-13, Miami 36-14, North Carolina 35-11, Notre Dame 52-3, and Florida 31-11. When it comes to rivalry games, you're talking Florida, Miami, and Clemson. Norvell is 6-8, running even with Florida and Miami at 2-2 and 3-3 respectively, and going 1-3 against Clemson. let's see. Yeah. The rest of this is really just a repeat. So, dark days, dark days. Um, I will say this. I will say that um, I think it's clear Mike Norvell is not a great head coach. Uh, Definitely not at this level with FSU's expectations. And I understand um, a lot of our opponents, Miami, Florida fans, whomever else, is going to say, "Oh, Florida State hadn't really been relevant in over a decade, for the most part, with the exception of 2023." Um, and you're right. You know, it has been a long time, but the expectations don't change. Uh, we've been criticized for years for playing in the ACC, and when Willie Taggart came in, and he was the guy that was responsible for the first losing season since 1976, uh, and the first time not getting a bowl invite since 1981. Um, that was enough. But playing in the ACC, how do you not make a bowl game? I mean, if you're already playing, say, on average, I mean, you're always playing at least Florida, and usually, um, more often than not, playing at least another Power Four school. But then you've always got, say, a Group of Five school and maybe a FCS program in there. There's a couple gimme wins for sure. And you're playing in the ACC, and you can't muster together four more wins out of the ACC. That's just unbelievable. And I really thought Willie Taggart was going to be as bad as it could get. And clearly that wasn't the case. Um, Last year, when we went 2-10, I was of the mindset that's not recoverable. You can't recover from that. Losing seasons, if you went 4-8, very difficult for a coach to recover from. 2-10, that's very difficult for a program to recover from. Uh, Coach Norvell has had a couple very unfortunate things go against him. Um, but at the end of the day, you're responsible in how you respond to that. And I think most fans are okay with writing off his first two seasons, and then we saw some progress. The 10-3 season followed by 13-1 were showing some serious progress. And then the snub happened, and I'm not going to get into that. I know opposing fan bases have their opinions of that, and that's fine. That's all in the past. But where I think that Coach Norvell failed there was I believe that his players saw how affected he must have been. Of course, I wasn't there behind closed doors. I can only assume. But I think they saw how affected he was. And what do you do in that position? It's hard to say because nobody else has really been in that position. To have been undefeated and kept out of the playoffs uh, based off a player's injury. What do you say? I don't know, but it's his job to figure it out. And what I'm getting at is I believe his failure there was to motivate. You're not going to get all your starters who are about to go pro to play in the Orange Bowl, but you can motivate some of them, I believe. But when practically all your starters sat out, you couldn't convince just a handful of them. Like, I don't know. I get not risking it. I get not risking your pro career, facing a potential injury for a bowl that really didn't have any meaning. But it was like a switch flipped because that team had been all about being together, playing for each other. After Jordan Travis went down, they were playing for him. They figured out how to win. They won the ACC championship. Still beat Florida. Um, they figured out a way, but then when it came to the Orange Bowl, they chose to sit out, and they got utterly annihilated, which to a lot of people was confirmation that they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Um, they just got skull dragged by Georgia, and that hurts the perception of your program. It hurts the narrative. It hurts recruiting, and that was really the beginning of the end right there. His failure to motivate and convince some of your starters to play in that game, and I think that just carried over into the next year. They went to Ireland. Things didn't go the way they had hoped against Georgia Tech, and that just set the tone. And it was no time, and the team quit. And that all falls on Coach Norvell. I don't believe that you recover from 2-10 uh, like most of the fan base. Hey, I'm happy to be wrong. And the start of this season, the Alabama game, my lord, it wasn't that Alabama looked bad. FSU did look really, really good in that game, and then in the two high schools that they played after that. Here we are yet again. So I, I just Mike's not the guy. Um, I feel like when he is eventually let go, that's the only question. It's a matter of when, not if. It's inevitable. Um, how long do they drag this out? His buyout is very expensive. One question that I had about his buyout, though, is FSU has been wrangling to leave the ACC for the last couple of years, and they just got all that settled not long ago. And there was talks of, well, you wait a couple of years till it drops to this level, and they'll pay it to get out. So I know that things like that involve approval by boards, etc. But if you can approve the money for that, I don't know. Maybe wait a couple more years to leave the ACC than you would like to, but I don't know if you can reallocate those funds to get rid of your coach and bring somebody else in new, because you're going to need a different coach before you end up in any other conference. Uh, but you need to maintain your value if you want an invite to either the other more preferable conferences. It's a numbers game right here. It's all about money. You're going to lose money either way. You can either bring in some new blood that might generate interest, but you're going to lose a lot of ticket sales if you keep Mike Norvell. That's just where we're at. I sympathize for the guy. I really do. You can tell, I believe he's genuine. He's a good guy. I believe he truly cares about the players. based off everything that we just went over, Mike's not going to take you to the promised land. He's not that guy. He had a pretty good 10-win season, followed by 13-1, and that was the anomaly. I don't believe that's something that is going to happen again. And a big part of that problem is that Coach Norvell either can't or doesn't recruit. He never has, as long as he's been at Florida State. Not to the level that you have to. I don't know why that is. I don't know if he's not capable, or when the transfer portal became a thing, I don't know if he saw that as, well, that's another option. Being that he's a man with a young family, we all know how much that job entails. Staying on the road, living on the road, constantly working. It demands a lot of sacrifice, and it always has, and it always will. But I don't know if, from where he sat, if he viewed the transfer portal as an option for better work-home balance. But I remember a few years ago, during 13-1 season, etc., several other fan bases, including some of our rivals and including some of our Canes friends, for lack of a better word, often repeated the transfer portal is not sustainable. And I'll be the first to admit, hey, you're right. You're right. It requires both. The modern game requires both, and if you can't or don't recruit at the highest levels and develop, because Coach Norvell and all of his staff have had major problems with that. They can recruit, they don't develop. All the recruits transfer out and go somewhere else. They hadn't developed. The kids they recruit, either, like I said, they either transfer, they're a bust, they just never see the field. That's a major problem, and that's not going to change now. All of this, all these facts that we just went over, every bit of that is probably used against him and used against Florida State on the recruiting trail. So he's not just going to magically get better at recruiting. Mike is cooked. Whether today, whether this year, whether 3 years from now. But it's time to come to terms. He's never going to deliver. He's not going to take you where you need to be. He's not the guy. Like him, nothing in the world personal against him, just like there wasn't anything personal against Coach Taggart. We wanted to see Coach Taggart do well too. This just ain't it. Although this is a discussion about Mike Norvell, there is one other concern that I'm seeing that I think other people have noticed, and I am baffled by our defensive performance and what is going on with Tony White. It is mind-boggling to have seen the way that the team played against Alabama and where they've been since then. For the people who don't really pay that close attention to Florida State, they're just watching for, get their jollies off and hate. That's fine. Coach White is a UCLA alumnus, and they fired their coach, and at some point he was contacted. A weird story about a Zoom call with a whole bunch of people. Um, and obviously I don't know anything, but I can't help but wonder, and this is just me speculating here, but it appears like the man has just checked out. UCLA still hadn't announced a hire. I would not be surprised in the slightest if they've already worked out a deal. They worked out an agreement. Um, that's just me guessing, but I think that's what's happened. Like, it is so night and day from how we started, and now the man is just like not even making adjustments during the games. The defense is abysmal, and yeah, I'm just left to think. Clearly, the man's just checked out. He's checked out on the season. He's checked out on the program. His mind is elsewhere. Uh, I don't know. Does somebody leaving? Do they just intentionally tank the school that they're at, knowing for recruiting purposes or something? I have no idea. Uh, I'm pretty sure Jimbo Fisher did when he knew he was leaving. Um, anyway, that's my take. I'd like to hear what you've got to say about it. Uh, do you think we should keep Coach Norvell? Uh, who do you think? You got anybody in mind that you think should be the replacement? How do they come up with the money? Um, do you think they should get rid of him, but at a later time when it's more affordable? I'd like to hear everybody's take. I appreciate you hanging out with me and hearing my thoughts. Them's just the facts. Y'all take care. Have a great day.